Welcome to this week's episode of the Mother Gaia Birthie Pod. We need to start with a trigger warning. This episode discusses abortion, reproductive rights and personal experiences. We are a pro-choice podcast. I firmly believe that women should have the right to decide how to live their lives and what to do with their bodies. This includes access to the correct information to make an informed decision about whether abortion is right for them or not. We also talk about the wider impacts of these issues, including my own personal experiences with abortion. Please take care while listening. Hello my lovely. This week I'm welcoming back the incredible Nichole Hamic. If you've been listening for a while, you might remember our first conversation where we found ourselves deep in a discussion about abortion and women's reproductive rights in the USA. That part of our chat didn't make it into the original episode, but it felt too important not to share. So the first half of today's episode is that previously unheard conversation. At the time, we were speaking before the US election in November, when Trump was re-elected, and even then, the situation was already deeply concerning. Now, with the election behind us, I invited Nichole back to talk about what's changed, how his re-election has impacted birth, reproductive rights and the wider landscape for women in the US and beyond, because let's be real, the ripple effects of these decisions don't just stop at the border, they shape our policies and attitudes across the Western world. This is a raw, honest and necessary conversation about autonomy, rights and the realities of birthing and parenting in a world where those rights are under threat. I hope it sparks thoughts, discussion and most importantly action. I asked Nichole about any current activism programmes she was involved in, and this was where we pick up the conversation.
I feel like right now I'm definitely at a season in my life where what I think of as very active, boots on the ground activism is more challenging for me at the moment. But I do and continue to try to use my platform, if you will, to share knowledge. And right now in the US, I think if anybody's been paying attention to US politics recently, it's quite the, for lack of a better word, absolute shit show when it comes to women's reproductive health rights.
Yeah, I have seen that, and I just keep going, why is this a thing? Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Like it's deeply, deeply upsetting. And so I attempt to use my platform to hopefully share and educate people on what I've always known. This was the slippery slope of people getting their fingers into women's reproductive health rights, right? And that is things like what we have happening in Louisiana right now, where the governor decided to decide that misoprostol is now a protected substance. It's a dangerous substance, and we have to keep it under lock and key. Because of course, he's anti-abortion or whatever. And I'm like,
I just want to pick up on that thing. He is anti-abortion.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yep. Girl, I'm gonna try not to use bad language on the podcast today.
You can use as much bad language as you like.
But it's like, my guy, that is life-saving medicine when postpartum women are trying to hemorrhage out all of their blood. And I want to say to this person, I would like you to sit in a room with a family that just brought a baby into the world while she loses half her blood volume.
Yeah.
I would like you to sit here and watch with me what that looks like and how absolutely fucking traumatizing it is to watch a human lose 2.5 to 3 liters of blood in under 10 minutes. Because now we have to keep misoprostol, our second line of defense against postpartum hemorrhage, under lock and key in a separate room.
Yep.
like kindly F right off. Like that sort of thing is so just mind-bogglingly stupid and offensive and degrading, and like how little value does the quote unquote pro-life, which you
who's
stand,
like, oh yeah,
like, I mean, I have sat with women while they hemorrhage and held their hands and then gone over to their partners while the OB stat team is trying to keep them alive and talk to them about what's happening and holding their baby and all those sorts of things. And the idea that some dude who is pro-life feels like they can take away a life-saving medication from midwives and doctors, it keeps me up. It keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
And you know, I just yeah. And so sharing some of the work of the other people in our country who are true, who are the activists, who are boots on the ground kind of activists right now. Like my dear friend, who I was her doula for her second baby. She is the president of the Abortion Fund of Arizona.
Okay.
That is what she does. She helps people access healthcare that they need in a state that has been fraught with, do we have rights? Do we not have rights? Do we have rights? Do we not have rights? And it's finally showing up on the ballot this year, in this election cycle, because they got enough support and that sort of thing. But you know, I asked her, and this was a few years ago. This was right when Roe v. Wade had been overturned, and I said, I was like, what are we supposed to do? Like, what is happening? Like, women are going to die, and they're going to die a lot. And I don't know if I have the strength to watch people I know and care about just die.
Yeah.
You know, and she was like, Nichole, yeah, I know. And she's like, I think not the rhetoric, nobody's been talking enough about it. We assumed that this was safe, right? We were told it was safe.
Yeah.
And we were told our rights were going to be protected. And so we stopped talking about it. And she's like, and I think it's going to have to get really bad again before women start demanding their rights back. And that's depressing. That's sad.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you're seeing the stories out of the last 2 years, of American women who have just, the stories are,
they're heartbreaking.
Absolutely. Just so disturbing and just, and I go, okay, well, I don't know what else to do. Like, what do we do? You know, like, and it's really hard to just be like, well, we just had a vote. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but like, but there's what we do, you know, because I've watched people bleed out. Before I left Arizona, I sat with a family who called me the day after their 20-week ultrasound. And she called me at 6:00 in the morning, because on my like business hours on my Google page, you know, it says like I'm open all day, because like who changes that when you're a Google? Like, whatever.
Well, yeah, exactly, right.
So she'd spent the whole night awake after getting catastrophic news during her anatomy scan, until she finally called me at 6:00 in the morning. And I'm moving to Utah 2 weeks later. So she calls me and I'm dead asleep. And she's like, I've been waiting to call you. I'm looking for somebody to help. I just had my anatomy scan, and, you know, we have a terminal diagnosis. And at first I was like, whoa, like, I want to help you. Give me a second to like become a conscious human. But also like I'm moving in 2 weeks. And she's like, but we're talking about inducing tomorrow.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, we're talking about having an abortion tomorrow. Okay. And she was like, and I don't know why, but like I was led to your page. I feel like God sent me to your website. And I don't advertise that I do bereavement and, you know, terminal diagnosis care. Like I don't have that anywhere, but like she found my website, she called me, and she was like, I just desperately feel like I need support. And I want pictures of us holding our daughter before she passes, you know, if possible, and or at least you know, right afterwards and things of that nature. And so I showed up at the hospital the next day, and I sat with her and I held her hands, and I sat with her husband, and we looked at pictures of their toddler, and we and eventually she pushed out her little teeny tiny 20-week baby in the hospital because it was still legal. And the doctor was caring and the nurse was wonderful. And I sat there because they did not want to. So I sat there with my finger on that baby's chest until its heart stopped.
Yeah.
And I provided pictures for them and I provided support for them. And then a year later, they called me, even though I wasn't in Arizona any longer, and they told me they were pregnant again. And then it turned out they had hired my old midwife, which just felt so full circle. And then they sent me pictures from the birth of their next baby, who was beautiful. And they told me they felt the spirit of their daughter in the room with them. And, and that is really what second trimester abortions look like when we have the right to cure. It was a beautiful birth. It was a beautiful, caring, heart-filled experience. Was it tragically sad? Absolutely.
Yeah.
This baby wasn't going to ever live. It was missing half its organs. Its arms and feet were folded in on themselves. Like this child was not going to be alive.
No. And then you take that right away.
What?
They then take that right away from you. And then what do you do in that situation? Then you go to full term and have a still, and you have that knowledge that you are literally carrying a dead baby around. What?
Yeah. What does that serve? Yeah.
Why?
What does it serve?
Yeah.
And the trauma around for a woman to have to walk around, go to work, drop their toddler off at school, and get more and more visibly pregnant. And for people to be like, oh, you're having another baby. How exciting. How fun. And you're like, no, my baby's actually going to die like immediately or probably during the birth process. And then if they do get born alive, they're just going to experience like vast amounts of pain because, they don't have the organs that they're supposed to have. And it's going to be like horribly hard and depressing and it might kill me in the process. Like, what is wrong with people? Like, I just don't get it. Like, it just blows my mind, and this way, she never had to tell her coworkers, right? She didn't have to, like, her family knew, but it wasn't like, and that wasn't like everybody needed to know her business, right?
Yeah.
But if you get to full term and you don't come home with a baby, every single person that is going to want to ask you questions, and you get to relive that trauma and that pain every single time you tell that story. Like, it's
prolonging
a crazy world.
Torture.
Yeah, it's torture. It's anti-human. Like, and the fact that so many women are then subsequently losing their ability to go on and have further children, right? Because they're getting so septic, so sick, so whatever, that they're having to have their uterus removed, their fallopian tubes removed. They're being ripped open because the baby's head has grown so large that they can't have a normal delivery, and so they're ending up with T-shaped C-sections, so that puts them at like exorbitantly higher risk of like death.
Before we jump into my most recent conversation with Nichole, I want to take a moment to pause. What you've just heard was our original chat, recorded before the US election, where we explored the deep and complex issues surrounding abortion and reproductive rights. But so much has changed since then. In just a moment, we'll pick up with our latest conversation, where we discuss how things have unfolded after Trump's re-election and what this means for women, birth and reproductive choices moving forward. But first, I want to take this opportunity to remind you that if any of today's topics have impacted you, or if you're navigating your own journey with pregnancy, birth, or reproductive choices, you don't have to do it alone. Through Mother Gaia, I offer online support calls, including Chat with Katie video calls, where we can talk through your thoughts, experience, and options in a safe, supportive space. Whether you need peer support, information, or signposting to further resources, I'm here to help. You can find more details on my website, mother-gaia.co.uk, or in the show notes. Now let's dive back into the second conversation with Nichole and explore where things stand today.
I don't know.
It's just like a big flaming tire mound, isn't it?
It is. It really is. It's very much, it's wild. And, one of my favorite people that I follow right now is, I don't know if you know Jessica Valenti, of Abortion Every Day. And she's an incredible journalist. And she has been covering basically women's reproductive health rights in the US, and also being very much a preemptive forecaster, if you will, about like, hey, this is what's happening and this is how they're going to come after these different things in women's reproductive health care. And I personally think that every woman in the US and quite frankly around the world right now should be following Jessica Valenti, because she has been right more times than I would like her to be, for sure. And the way that she breaks it down, I think, is brilliant. So she's definitely one of my people who I love to follow and love to talk about. And sometimes, because I get so emotional and so overwhelmed, it's hard for me sometimes to even like produce a an articulate, response to people who are so deluded to what is happening and what is occurring here and in other places, that it's I get really worked up about it, right? As a birth worker, for me, and I think it takes some people by surprise. I think that that birth workers who are passionate about moms and babies and things like that can also be like passionately pro-choice. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised that people are surprised, because of course I want the people that I care for to have access to birth wherever they feel the best. I want them to be able to make informed choices about all aspects of their care. I want, like, as a mom, I know like how deeply like transformative and hard and intentional like I have to be about being a mom. Like, if I didn't want it deeply, like I still know I'm messing up like on a regular basis, and the amount of times I apologize to my own children for like not doing a good job, right, is wild. And I think about like, wow, if we were just forcing women to just have babies that they don't want, who are maybe also putting their lives at massive risk, and who are we to decide like what is appropriate risk for somebody else? right? Like that continues to kind of boggle my mind. Anyway, I've kind of like taken 1,500 tangents already. I woke up to the news this morning that 125 House Republicans have brought forth a bill to the US Congress. 125 House Republicans have brought a bill forth in the US for a total abortion ban with no what's the word? Exception for the life of the mother.
Wow.
So that happened this morning. And, that's the kind of news I feel like we're waking up to every single day. And I think this is rich, really rich, coming from, the amount of times I, on my own social media, was like, hey guys, this is what's in, Project 2025. This is what's going to happen. They are coming for a full abortion ban. This was not just like, oh, we'll put it to the states, blah, 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 which also is hinky. Because your rights over your body and your healthcare should not matter geographically, like where you are in the country. So we've seen that. We've seen Idaho just this week, their Supreme Court supported their bill to make it illegal and punishable by law to travel out of state for abortions.
No way.
Yes. So, yeah, so it's like, I feel like every single day here in the US, we are waking up to more horrors, more restrictions, more pain and suffering. In Texas and in Georgia, they went ahead and just like disbanded the maternal mortality investigative branches of their government. So because all these women were dying, right? And then the news was finding out all these women were dying based off of these reports. And they were like, well, you know what? We are just not going to have people looking at it anymore. And then, we'll
then
just
you've got no statistics to tell anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez Louise, that's awful. Obviously, as I said, I had to do a little bit of research before we came in and things like that, because I knew it was going to hit hard. I was like, right, let's get a few statistics, let's have a look. And like you were just saying then, that the whole blanket ban across the whole of USA, what I didn't realize was that it's not just abortion that they're looking at, it's restricting contraception as well.
Yes.
It's like, why would you do that? Like, you can't, not even preventative of it. This was like, I had said before we started recording that I fell down a rabbit hole. I fell down a rabbit hole, like we've gone on from you can't get an abortion. It's like, right, well, let's make, contraception better. Like, no, you can't get contraception either. Right. Okay, then. So then what are you actually saying then? So you're going to make these women stay at home in the kitchen, looking after all these children, blah, 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 blah. What about childcare? Oh no, you're not having childcare either. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. Like, what is this? Where are you going with this? What is your ideologically? Like, what is it you're thinking of? And all the things that I've read, all the pieces that I've read, all the things that I've been through, even my own conclusion is this government that you've got is going, you're a woman, you're not worthy of what us men are doing. You stay at home, you're a mother, you're a wife, and you do as you're told.
Yeah.
And
no,
that's
100%.
it. Like, what?
Yeah, the right has been like mocking and laughing at liberal women for the last 10 years about us being like, hey, Handmaid's Tale is happening right now. Like, it is happening. Like, I remember I watched the first season and I got into the second season, and actually that book is what like changed the trajectory of my life back in middle school. I can't remember if I mentioned that in our previous chat.
I don't think we did, but I've watched it and I read the book as well, and I've only been new to it, and I was reading it and I was thinking this was written decades ago,
yeah,
and it's literally happening
right now.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at it as a warning, right? And it should be. It is written as a warning, right? And it feels like instead Republicans in the United States are using it as a guidebook.
Yeah.
As a guidebook, right? Yeah. As like, oh, here's how we do this, right? We had a far right evangelical group that has put a lot of money and is widely supported by a number of our legislators in the U.S. who are just saying the quiet stuff out loud now. You know, they were like, we absolutely are going to attempt to repeal the 19th Amendment, which in the United States is the right for women to vote. You know, they absolutely are saying it out loud that they believe that women are second-rate citizens, that we should not have rights, we should not have autonomy, we are property of our husbands or fathers. And it feels like we are living in the dark ages. And it's incredibly scary. You know, I have a 9-year-old daughter. She's about to turn 10. She's in early puberty, or she's just kind of like starting that process right now, you know, and I go, what is actually happening? Like, and what's the right move? You know, I won't lie and say that the first couple of days after the election results started coming in, like, were a dark time for me. I was not a healthy human. And I'm grateful for my husband, who was just like, okay, Nichole is unwell. I'm just going to take care of things, you know, and just like, let me live in my tears and in my, you know, wallowing. And it's a really hard thing. And you know, one of the things that I've thought about and talked about a lot when it comes to the abortion talk, right? The women's reproductive health care, because it's not just abortion anymore. Like, it's truly like all things women's reproductive health. And of course, like, abortion is a part of that, because of course the same things that we use for abortion are medical procedures to save women's lives after a miscarriage, or even just like their placenta not detaching from their uterus properly after birth and things of that nature. But, you know, today waking up and knowing like, oh, we're going to talk, and then seeing the news about like the bill being brought forward for a total abortion ban nationwide was just like, oh, okay, well, that seems timely. You know, Trump hasn't even taken office. He doesn't even take office until, you know, 2025, January 20th. And we're already, you know, seeing this. And if they don't get it that way, I do believe wholeheartedly, and I will say it now, and I hope I'm wrong, but they will absolutely use the Comstock Act, use a new director of the FDA to make misoprostol and mifepristone illegal.
Yeah.
And that absolutely terrifies me.
We touched on this subject last time when we were saying how that's it's not just used for that one thing, that we're literally looking at women bleeding out, that they need this drug to stop them from hemorrhaging. And I mean, at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said that it's now a protected drug and you have to have so many people to sign for it. It's in a locked cabinet and things like that.
In one of the states in the United States right now, yes, it has successfully been declared a controlled substance. So, and I always forget which horrible state it is. I'm like, is it Missouri? I don't know. I always think it's Missouri because like Missouri sounds like misery, and I'm just like that.
Yeah, I can see that connection. Yeah.
It might not be Missouri. I would have to look it up. When you have 50 states in the U.S. and they're all like, you know, half of them are completely wackadoodle.
Well, I mean, that was the other thing as well, that they're already restricted or banned in 21 states as it is, the abortions, and it's like, well, that's nearly half.
Yeah.
That, I mean, it's so close to half, it may as well be half, you know, like, how is this even already a thing?
Right. And then we have states making it illegal to travel out of state.
Yeah.
And how do they do that? How do they then control that, right? So does that mean they're putting police officers at every, you know, highway entrance and exit from their state? Are they collecting data on women and their pregnancies? Like, will that encourage women to not seek early prenatal health care because they don't want people to know? Like, when you start to look at what also like the ramifications of these laws are, you go, right to privacy is out the window,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, which we saw when they struck down Roe v. Wade, because Roe v. Wade was constructed around the right to privacy, right? And when they struck that down, it was just a massive blow for all things right to privacy. And I mean, they're coming for it, you know. I have no qualms about telling people, do not use period trackers, do not use fertility trackers on your phone, do not, you know, do not have online conversations about your healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
you know, your reproductive healthcare. You know, you should only be having those in private and in person. And you know, one of my dear long-time friends, I was actually her doula for her second baby, is the director for the abortion fund of a state in the U.S. And I won't say which because I could prefer, you know. But you know, she's the director of that state's abortion fund, and we were talking years ago now, and I was like, "Girl, what do you make of all this?" And she goes, "You know, I think that women our age, right? So like elder millennials, Gen Z, like they're so far removed, right? And even a lot of our own moms, right? Like they're so far removed from watching women die in droves due to no abortion care, it being illegal, that sort of thing, that we're so far removed from it that we can't see the ramifications because we can't see what's in front of us, right? We only see what's in front of us.
Yeah.
And right now, right, and the media and now the states are actually attempting to repress the information that women are dying, right? But until it becomes so widespread,
Yeah. It's going to have to become like an epidemic for everybody
right,
to be able to see it before it's going to get changed again. And then how many people are going to lose their life?
correct.
And all this stuff on the education system and the sexual education and things
Yeah,
like that as well. If we're now literally telling women, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone that where you are in your cycle. Don't tell people whether you're fertile. Don't tell people that you're early pregnancy in case you need to dodge a border to get rid or whatever it is that you're having to do.
yeah,
We already are really bad at telling each other stuff. We're already really bad at telling people about birth and things like that. Obviously, that's why me and you were kind of doing the stuff that we're doing, is to get the education out there and to get people to know that. But within the education system itself, it's not great to start with.
no,
You then start dulling that down even more.
yeah,
I can't get my head around how you would then be able, like say your daughter, who's at that age where you need to be able to start explaining to her what her
right,
body is doing, how it works, what it's meant to do, how to keep herself protected, and this, that, and the other. If you're then restricting things like contraception,
right.
I mean, even like I know when I was like young teenager,
Mm-hmm.
I was on contraception not because I was sexually active, but because I had really bad periods,
Right,
and I needed something to help control it and dim it down and all that kind of stuff. Because I literally for 4 days a month couldn't get out of bed.
right. Yes.
If you then take all the contraception off, like, what are you then doing with those girls?
Well, I mean, and yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, we have. I mean, I don't know. I would have to look up a statistic, but I mean, at least 1 million women in the U.S. are on contraception for treatment of PCOS, you know, menopause, perimenopause, other health issues. They're going through cancer treatment and can't get pregnant right now. They are, you know, pick a thing, right? Like
Yeah,
we use contraception for so many reasons other than just trying not to get pregnant, which is also a very good reason to use contraception.
absolutely.
You know, I was on contraception starting at the age of 15, 16, somewhere in there, I forget. You know, I became sexually active at 16, and but you know, and I was on contraception basically until I was 32 years old, 31, 32, 32. When I got pregnant with my first daughter, you know, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful I didn't die in childbirth after having my 9th child. I had been married for 20 years. And I've been with the same man for 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want 9 children.
No.
I do still want to have sexual relations with my husband.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe that the only reason to have sex is to procreate. I think that is nonsense.
No.
And, you know, after the birth of my second child, my midwife, who is a conservative Christian woman, and I'm sure she would tell you that, has been a CNM practicing in both out of hospital and in hospital settings for 30 plus years, more probably at this point. Looked at me in the eye and said, Nichole, you know how I want you to have all of the, I want my families to have all the babies. But after being with you for your 2 births and watching what happened after this one, I don't think you should have more children. Mm-hmm. Nothing enrages me more than when men especially, or women who've had an easy time of it, act like pregnancy is a walk in the park. Like, it doesn't change you forever, whether you keep that child or not, mm-hmm. right? Like, the things it does to your body, your health. I mean, I didn't have a single cavity growing up. Do you know how many I had after I had my kids? I had to have 9 fillings.
I've had to have 4 fillings and a tooth removed.
Yeah. Because like, I love my children, but they literally suck the life out of you.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. If they're not taking your sleep, they're taking the bone marrow directly from you through your milk, and then they're taking the teeth out of your face. Like, honestly, it is not something that you would go into and just go, well, I was pregnant, it was lovely, I had a baby, look, isn't it gorgeous? My life is exactly the same. Right. Even if you, like I say, even if you don't go ahead with that pregnancy, if you, for whatever reason, whether it be because of nature, because you chose not to, it still affects you. There's still something that goes on there. I mean, talking from my own experiences, like, when I was really young, I got accidentally pregnant. It was a one-night stand. I was just about to go to uni. I didn't have enough money to support myself. This person, I didn't even know his last name. Like, the things that you do when you're right? You just
stupid. Yeah, your frontal cortex isn't formed yet.
And it wasn't even as if I wasn't being like clever about it. Sure. The contraception we were using failed.
Sure.
Right? It wasn't like I was just going, yeah, well, I'll just sleep with anybody, blah, 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 blah. I did it that one time, and then I've never done it since, you know. I was like, right? I was in a lucky enough position to go to my doctors and go, I'm pregnant, I want to get rid of it, book me in. A couple of weeks later, done, dusted. But it's not like I just go, yeah, well, I had a termination, who cares, blah, 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 blah. It still has affected me later in life, in my adult life. When I got with my current partner, I mean, we've been together nearly 11 years.
Yeah.
We fairly early on-ish in our relationship wanted to have children. And I had 2 miscarriages. And I could not help myself in thinking it's my own fault. Because I had a termination, I'm being punished, and therefore I'm having to. I mean, and it's not true. Yeah. I know it's not true. And there was other things going on and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But this was 15 years later, 20 years later.
Yeah.
And I was blaming myself for the choices that I had. So it's not something that you do lightly. You don't go around. Well, I'm generalizing. Most women don't go around lying on the back and go, well, I'll just have a termination if I get pregnant. It's a fairly good idea. No. It's not something that you undertake lightly.
No, it's not.
To then have that taken away from you when you're in a situation, because I mean, I always go back to this other one. I mean, it's a nasty situation, but it happens. You get a woman who's raped, and then ends up pregnant because of being raped,
Yeah.
are you going to force her to keep that child? What then happens? What does that woman then have to give up that child and all of those maternal instincts? She has to carry it for 9 months and give birth to it, and then go, I can't look at this baby in the eye because it was brought about by evil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why would you take that right and that decision away from someone?
Because people, I have just decided, are sick and cruel.
Mm-hmm.
They're so warped by their current version of their religion that they cannot see the evil that they are perpetrating.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a simpler explanation for it than that. And subjugating women makes small, weak people feel bigger and stronger.
Yeah. And that's a wrap on this first part of my conversation with Nichole. We've covered so much already, but there's still more to come. The concluding part of this discussion will be out in a fortnight, but if you can't wait, you can listen to it much sooner over on the Buy Me a Coffee page. Next week we'll be back with our second part of Linda's birth story, another powerful conversation that will also be available early on Buy Me a Coffee for those who want to dive in ahead of time. We're also creeping closer to the end of season 1 of the Mother Gaia Birthing Pod. And behind the scenes, I've been really busy shaking things up for season 2. I've got an exciting new co-host joining me to chat things all pregnancy, birth and motherhood, and we'll be diving into the latest news in the birth world, sharing the highs and the absolute fucking lows of our own mothering lives, and bringing you some brand new segments. And one of our biggest changes? We want you to be part of the conversation. With our new Ask Us Anything segment, you can send in your questions about pregnancy, birth, postnatal and parenthood, and we'll do our best to give you the most up-to-date, evidence-based answers, or at least point you in the right direction. Or we can just reassure you on the big stuff, like whether you'll ever get a full night's sleep again. Spoiler, probably not, but we all live in hope, eh? So, if you've got a burning question or a topic you'd love us to cover, send it in. Details will be in the show notes. Until next time, my lovely, take care and see you next week for more birthy goodness.